There's so much encouragement for women to continually grin and bear it, deny themselves in the service of their children, in the service of their partners, and all for the greater good. If you're not overworked and overscheduled and crazy busy and you can't keep up with it all, then you're not doing it right. This whole culture of denial. I didn't deny me this time. I chose me. Hi, I'm Sarah Schmidt. I'm 52 years old, and I can honestly say that I have never felt better. For the first 50 years of my life, I navigated some pretty fucking hard things that I like to call my Holy Schmidt moments. They include things like being diagnosed with cancer, navigating my sexuality, adopting children, two divorces, losing my dad, and having a biological child in my 40s. After decades of some really, really hard work, I have fallen deeply in love with myself and my life. Turns out that embracing the magic and the expansion that comes with getting older, it isn't a bad place to start. I'm here to prove that life doesn't have to decline with age. In fact, it gets a whole lot better. On Holy Schmidt, we are going to dive into my curiosities around wellness and longevity and mindset. And we are going to do it with really vulnerable, thoughtful conversations with people that I really love and admire. This season, we are going to celebrate and honor growth and transformation and find profound beauty in connection. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to Holy Schmidt. We are launching an episode today that I recorded about 3 months ago, almost exactly 3 months ago, on the day that my divorce was final. It's a beautiful episode, and it was one that was really, really, really fun to listen back to. I remembered all the feelings, the emotions, the reactions, the responses I had to that pretty big day, and all the days leading up to it. And today, as I sit here 3 months later, I have this opportunity, this gift, sort of ask myself, how am I doing? How am I getting along? And how much of those things that I said 3 months ago still ring true? And the reality is that it's all true. And it still is. And I continue to learn how to live into this new phase of my life. Some days have been spectacular, effortless, full of joy. And there have been days that have been lonely and hard, a lot harder than I expected they would be. But what has remained my guiding, my North Star, is my belief that I can do hard things, that choosing the things that align for me and waiting for the things that are meant for me is the best way for me to live my life. And so today, I share this episode with you with the same amount of joy and hope, and maybe even more belief in myself. Certainly more confidence that I made the right decision for me and my family. The peace that I have around it as I live into this is bigger and bolder than it was 3 months ago. And I invite you with a critical ear to think about, what are the things in your life that might not be aligned? What are the things that you want to let go of? I'm not suggesting that you get divorced, but I am suggesting that to bring newness in, we have to let go of that which doesn't fit. We cannot expect all the new and the beautiful to show up if we aren't willing to let go of that which isn't meant for us. And so, here you go. Grace and Jessica and I sit down on the day I got divorced to talk about big transformational change. I hope you really, really enjoy this episode. I feel like I did something really, really, really big. And yet there's a part of me that doesn't know how to relate to this either. I chose me. I chose my
my sanity, my freedom. I chose like my own joy, my own sense of purpose and love for myself and satisfaction. It's hard to, I'm feeling like it's a bit hard to actually like celebrate that, to really like fully lean into a celebration around that, because there's so many other messages that are sent to particularly women around that choice. Right. And so there's a part of me that feels a sense of like, am I entitled to celebrate this thing? And the world looks at divorce as a bad thing. You're supposed to avoid it at all costs. And I feel amazing today because I am divorced. I chose me. I chose this. And I fought for it. And it was like crazy freaking hard. But I feel a certain sense of like, I feel a little bit of a little conflict around that. And I think I, over time, might be able to lean into it more. I hope I can. And I also feel like I'm not supposed to maybe be so happy. I'm really fucking happy right now.
But that's such a big universal thing. Like, are we allowed to celebrate when there's a war? You know, like, are we allowed to be happy about our good lives when people are starving on the streets? You know, like things that we have that other people are unhappy to have, you know, like it's a big conversation about like owning your own joy even when others are suffering.
But I think like those specifically about like a divorce.
Yeah.
You know, so many people were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, congratulate me. I made a really hard choice. And I did the right thing. And like, it wasn't for me. I wasn't aligned. I made the right choice. I did it. It was hard. And now we're going to all move on and it's okay. And my kids will be fine. And they really will. And, you know, we're all going to be okay. Maybe better than okay. Like I feel like I'm fighting against a little bit of that energy right now or today. Like I'm a little afraid. It is. It's sort of like, can I be excited about what I have if you don't have it? Like, but it's what this is about. You know, like I'm afraid to kind of exude. Can I just really lean into how good I fucking feel today?
I think also naming and knowing like, you know, the circumstances of divorce are also different, right? Like there could be a couple that like really doesn't want to get divorced, but it's the only way and it's really sad for them, you know? There could be, I mean, there in extreme cases, there's, you know, abusive relationships and people are escaping their relationships in some scary senses. There are, you know, one partner wasn't in it, but the other partner wanted to be in it. Like, so there's so many different amalgamations of why it doesn't work out. But I think being connected to your truth and your story with this, which is the fact that this didn't feel aligned, you could have kept going. You could have like, you know, grunted through, but you wouldn't have been totally abandoning yourself. It would have had so many other implications on you, on your health, on your mental, on your kids, frankly. And saying, okay, I know society, the norm is telling me that you just get married and you suck it up and you figure it out. But I know myself, I'm listening to myself, and this is not my truth. And so I think knowing that that is what you're celebrating today, you're honoring of your truth, of listening to yourself, of not abandoning yourself, of taking care of your needs, like, hell yeah, you should be celebrating that, you know?
Yeah. I just feel like there's so much encouragement for women to continually
grunt and bear it.
Grin and bear it, and like deny themselves in the service of their children, in the service of their partners, and all for the greater good. And there's even this whole like, if you're not overworked and overscheduled and crazy busy and you can't keep up with it all, then you're not doing it right. And like this whole culture of denial. And I want to I didn't deny me this time. Like I chose me. I could have continued on that path. You know? And I didn't. And I showed my kids something and you don't have to either, you know, like you have the choice. And there's something Like that is a value. You do not have to suffer. Like this whole idea that it's not worthy if it isn't, if you're not suffering, if it isn't hard, it's not good. I mean, I was raised in that, if it's not hard, it's not good. And only the good is hard. And it's fucking hard. Well, you know what? I don't think that's true anymore. And I feel this like insane sense of relief around like this new belief I have that it doesn't all have to be hard. I don't have to make it hard. I don't have to choose the hard. Yes, some things will be. But I also get to have ease and joy and lightness and space in my life. I get to, as a mother, I get to choose me. Like it feels like so, like I didn't just turn the page. I'm in a new book. It's book 2, And it feels so like elemental and also like, I don't know, the first time you ever tasted lobster. You were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And drawn butter. I don't know what it is. Like, it just feels so like spring water, like baptized in something totally fundamentally different. It's like, it's insane. I mean, it literally is insane. Like I thought that we were going to do something about this like little cute podcast and we were going to tell some stories. I had no idea that I was going to find myself. Like we talked about how Sarah found her voice, but then and then the universe really was like, really? Dig a little deeper. And now there's this part of me that's like, what is next? Like how much deeper could we go? Like it's just really, I mean, it feels really profound. So anyway, I didn't know I'd get emotional about it, but I guess that's probably appropriate.
The one reflection I keep thinking about is when you are hearing Sarah say that she's choosing herself and that sensation of choosing yourself, I want you to like not hear Sarah's story as like, well, that's nice that she got to choose herself. I want you to like really take that in and see that as like permission for you to choose yourself. So who's ever listening, wherever they're at, like take her story and know that that same power, that same like love for self is possible for you. Because I think it's so, the first thing, especially someone who can be very, like the critical thinker, that they're like, well, that's good for your story, but I can't do that. Or it's not for my circumstances, or, oh, I could never, be as brave as Sarah. It's like, no, you're listening to this story because there is something about your story that you're not choosing or that you need to choose. And just like sit with that reflection for a second.
Yeah. And I think a big reflection for you, Sarah, knowing you is it's like an entire narrative flip. Like you said, it's like you opened a new book because so much of your message has been life is hard, but we can deal with it. And now your story is life doesn't have to be hard. Life can be joyous. Like the hard things don't actually have to feel quote unquote hard. It doesn't have to be such a challenge. And so it feels like you've like elevated your consciousness, like you've popped open another layer. And like if you saw this sliver of consciousness, you see this sliver of consciousness. It's like your world is so much bigger. The access to good and to ease that you have is so much bigger. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we continue traversing topics around like how to deal with challenge, but not viewing it as like so hard, viewing it as like, what a joy,
What
or
an opportunity is here. Yeah.
sometimes the answer is just like not to endure it and to leave, just to like, what if you could stand up and say, oh, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't have to figure out how to deal with the hard.
I mean, we've talked about so many aspects of my story, but a lot of them we haven't like dug into some of the like the current stuff that was challenging in the last like year, you know, or like what all the pieces that played into this decision and why it really wasn't the best time, you know, and like what all the reasons in which I could have said, like, I'm just going to suck it up and like, we're just going to deal. And I didn't do that this time. I didn't let those things stop me from taking care of me. And I found out that I was able to also take care of all the other people who needed, and I did it better. I'm a better mom today than I was 7 months ago. I'm making better choices in my parenting because I chose me. I am truly like launching my children in different ways because I actually fucking launched me. And I think we so often are like trained, it's like put others first, you know, and then you'll deal with yourself last. But these last couple years and this last year in particular has been this, like, I've been in a lab where I've been experimenting with actually putting my own oxygen mask on instead of just talking about it metaphorically. And I can't even, I mean, my kids are great. And my relationships are more real and whole and authentic. And all of it's just become elevated in such a beautiful way. And it's like literally astounding to me today. The sun is starting to poke out the sky, and right now is going from like, it was gray. It looked like we were going to have like a tornado. And I'm now looking at blue, just like bursting out of the sky in these in front of me. And it is how I actually like, it's how I feel.
It's going to be really interesting to talk to Asha because your divorce exactly tracked the Pluto retrograde.
Like, I talked to her on Saturday and then I texted her yesterday. And I'm like, this is, and you pointed it out, Jessica. You were like, wait, and Pluto's moving into Aquarius tomorrow.
The same day. Yeah.
The same day.
There's like literally divine timing. And you know, you guys, I got to give you like a shit ton of credit here on this because you have been consistently like, well, we need to really trust the timing and we got to wait, you know, like, well, we got to really see what presents itself. And like, we can't rush this. And not talking about the divorce. I'm talking about just all the things we've been working on, but you have this way of trusting the universe. And I do too, but my way has been a little different.
You're like, I'm going to trust it, but I'm also going to get an insurance plan for it.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to trust it, and I'm going to buy a trip insurance.
Yeah.
I have been leaning more into the trusting, and every time I lean, the universe shows me why that was the right choice. This morning I did like a little meditation. It was cut short by like a kid thing, of course, but I had enough time to pull like 3 cards from a deck, and I was just kind of like meditating on them. And they were like, it was like the first card I pulled said yes with an exclamation point.
Oh, amazing.
I am so overjoyed by the reality that like there's so many amazing things left for me in the world. I'm 52 and I literally feel today like my life is like just starting. And I cannot freaking wait. I don't know what is ahead of for me. No idea. But I just, that reality is so cool, you know? Because if you had told me at 20 that I was going to feel this way at 52, I could have said, you're crazy, because I thought I was going to be dead. I feel more alive than like I could ever really imagine. You know, and it's so cool. It's so freaking cool. So anyway, oh my God, you guys, I'm so grateful for you. I still remember like literally, I think we got on the call, we had a call like the day I filed for divorce. And I was like, well, I have some big news. You were like, okay.
I know. We're always
Right?
like, let's do it. Great.
Let's do it. That's
Yeah.
great.
We've got this. This is
Yeah,
great.
we're
Let's
here
just
for
go
you.
up level, upgrade.
You were here for you. And I think there was just that. I knew you were in such a beautiful way. And so everybody should have a team of people who just, when you tell them you're going to do something big, they just say, oh, we're here for you. Yeah, let's do it.
I
You
think
got
it's also
this.
so big that we're not a part of like your everyday life, because we don't know any of the context. We just know you. So all we can do is root for what is the best for Sarah. Like we're not the friend who's like surveying, like, but let me play devil's advocate. Like we're solely focused on your happiness. And you need those people that are like, I'm not thinking about any other factors other than your happiness.
That's such a great point. And I feel the same way kind of about both of you. Yeah. I'd be like, of course you should make that choice because it's the right thing for you. There aren't a lot of people in my life who really know me for me the way you do. They know me as a mom, as a friend for decades. They know my whole family. I mean, whatever. And so that's really cool. That's make new friends.
Totally. Yeah. Who can meet you where you are. Mm-hmm.
And I think also just acknowledging what is of the highest good of one is going to be at the highest good of all. Like so many times when people look at divorce and they're like, oh, well, what about the family? Or what about this? Or what about that? It's like, okay, but having someone constrain their joy, their vivaciousness, their ability to live life in a way that feels like most aligned for them is going to make all those other categories suffer. So it's like, it's not actually going to help in the long haul. Like what is having space that everyone could live their truth. And even thinking of, someone who might be divorcing or has gone through a divorce where like one partner really wanted to divorce and the other partner really didn't. It's like the person who maybe doesn't want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to choose them. That's not going to be for their highest good. Ultimately, they so deserve to get chosen. They so deserve to have that person. And so it's like, can we hold space for everyone's truth to let them be in their highest timeline and their highest good, even though it might not be the way that we thought we were going to get our highest good or needs met. But when you can release that, it's like, look at how much opens up on the other side.
Yeah. The last couple weeks, I've really dug deep into kind of the me that chose this relationship and all the things that I don't want to do again. And I recognize in so many ways, the ways in which I was really not, I was not a the right partner for him. And the ways in which my like inner child was just like over freaking functioning and so blended with these needs to constantly like validate, prove that they were right. And, I'm seeing it so clearly. I mean, it started in the guise of like, I don't want to make that mistake again. But then it was more of just like, who is that person that I'm letting go of? Not him, but the me that chose him. That's the part that I'm letting go of. He's always going to be in my life. And I want that. But what I want to really acknowledge is, what do I need to let go of in the me that chose him? Because there were a lot of things that I just subconsciously wasn't really aware of, really super blended with lots of parts. If we're going to go into the IFS sort of version of this, my inner child saw his inner child and was like, oh, I know that. I love fixing that. Let me tackle that, And I did. I tackled it. I tried to fix it. And all under the guise of being so helpful and such a good partner and a good wife, but it wasn't right. I was over functioning like I had done my whole life. And this process had been an uncoupling for me of those parts, like uncoupling. We talk about the blending of parts. So I'm uncoupling from those parts that were just way over functioning in me. And I've learned so much about that piece, that part, those parts. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. This thing about fixing is not actually love. It's actually denial of what's in front of you. And so, like, to that end, like, you weren't really able to be the most loving partner if you couldn't accept your partner, if you were just trying to fix your partner. But now that you've learned to do that for yourself, you can have a real relationship where you're like, okay, here's the person in front of me. No fixing. Like, my knee jerk isn't to fix anymore. My knee jerk is just to love, to be with. And it's going to transform all your relationships, probably.
I mean, that little girl who felt like she was gonna, like, my survival hinged on being helpful and good and, all those things, and got so much praise for all of that, is a terrible wife. She's a horrible partner in an adult relationship. And she has no business being having that much control over any situation, right? She didn't then as the little person, and she doesn't now. And like, this whole process has been me coming to, like, some terms with that. And also developing a different relationship with her, because she doesn't disappear. That part of me still exists, but I've really had to step into my adulthood, if you will, and have a different relationship with that part of myself too.
What do you think about so many times when, like, that inner child part is coming up, when that inner child part of you is like, oh, I know that, I can fix that, I know the role to play here, I know how to do it well, like, this is what I'm good at, that, like, had that almost probably unconscious, and now it's conscious, draw to your partner at that time. Oftentimes it's that inner child trying to get a corrective experience. The inner child's part that was like, oh, I can attach here, I know the role to play, oftentimes is doing that because it thinks, like, okay, in childhood, I didn't, maybe, not saying this is your scenario, but one example could be like, okay, that part was birthed out of feeling like you didn't have a parent or a caretaker that was playing that role. So maybe one option is that part was like, wow, if I fix you in the way that I know how to fix things, then I will finally have the parent. I'll finally have my caretaker. Like, what was that need that inner child part thought it was going to meet through this means?
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that at our core, as, like, little people, we learn very, very early on that, like, our parents are going to keep us alive. And that's sort of the assumption, right? They're going to keep us alive. But if we feel like their livelihood is threatened, right, then ours is too. So I saw parents who were stressed, burdened, unhappy, struggling, and the little person in me really felt like I needed to step in and try to save them, because if I lost them, what do I have, right? And it really felt almost like it felt life threatening. So, I mean, and I've gone into this a little bit in the podcast, but, like, I quickly learned that, like, if I could light my dad up. He could come home from work, 5 o'clock, walk through the door, be absolutely miserable. I could run, daddy, 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 big hug, jump in his arms. I did this today. Let me tell you about, all the things and he would light up, and all the worry and stress and unhappiness that I saw on his face at the door would shift to joy. And I thought it was me. And so I got into these patterns. And I saw my mom struggling as a parent, struggling to manage all the demands of her life, and really worn out, and oftentimes completely, like, I mean, she'd have these massive migraines that would incapacitate her for, in my mind, it was days at a time, although I don't know that it really was, but in a little person's mind, an hour and a day. I mean, think about how children really don't understand the concept of time. And I was going to make her feel better. And so I would do anything and everything I could, right? Clean the house, make a meal, fold the laundry, iron the shirts, just be, extra joyful, extra happy, extra, whatever it was. And the minute I saw a smile on her face, right, or I got reinforcement for what I did, it was like, oh, it's working. It's working. It's working. I'm keeping her alive. I think this actually operates in our little person selves. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 years old, right? But what it did is I just kept getting reinforced for all of that activity. It wasn't really me. It was all about them, right? How can I make them happy? And I started to see myself as a fixer. I can fix this.
Yeah. As you were talking, both of you, I was thinking, just to totally simplify this, the math equation is, if I am helpful, I get love, right? Like if I take care of everybody's needs, there's space for everybody else to love me. They don't have to do the dishes before they can love me. I've already done the dishes, so I get love. And then you chase that in romantic partnerships because you're like, I will fix you and then you will love me. And like you're really on this journey of realizing, no, like love comes first, like love is the baseline. I already have that capacity to receive without doing anything. And to me, the shift is like divorcing yourself from this idea that I need to do something to receive love.
Yeah. I think it's even not just to receive love, but to prove my fundamental worthiness. Like for me, it was this, like, I am worthy if I am doing, helping, and I will prove my worthiness by being that good little helper, and because it was so connected to my ego, right? And my ego's survival, right? There can be no error in this. So there isn't room to see where this isn't working because it's life-threatening. It becomes life-threatening. That's when that's where we become so blended with our parts, right? I can't see it. Well, I wasn't seeing how I was undermining the goal day after day after day in all of my doing because I wasn't allowing anyone to be.
How do you deal with friends who might jump straight to wanting to demonize your partner? Like, I have so many people in my life, when I try and take accountability for my own lessons, they'll just be like, yeah, but, he was shit and whatever. And like, you didn't actually do anything. Like, these are just horrible people. And like, it's hard to let go of like knowing that the only common denominator is you. And like, whatever experience you're having, like you want because you're having it, And so I guess obviously there's things that our partners will always do wrong and there's things that we'll do wrong, but how do you sort of take accountability and extend that unconditional love without demonizing the partner and also maybe not totally letting them off the hook either?
Yeah. Well, I'm really, really, really careful about who I share the details with because, if you're really going to do an honest appraisal of your relationships, who has the capacity to hear the struggle and the story and also hold your partner in regard as a human being who deserves fundamental respect and they have it and understands there's a side to their story too. And so I've been really, I was just very careful. Very few people know kind of the ins and outs, the gory details. I don't know if really anybody knows all of that. I kept it to people my therapist, a coach, my very, very best friend who I trust will hold things in confidence, if for no other reason than to protect my children. This need, we seek confirmation for what we know. And it's only just another version of what I was talking about. I need to be right. Well, part of growing up is recognizing that you're just wrong most of the time, and just being okay with that. It wasn't okay to be wrong when I was a kid. It was life-threatening. And part of what fell apart in my marriage was I couldn't be wrong. I could never be wrong. I had to always be right. And the more difficult things got, the more right I needed to be. And I couldn't separate from that. Well, in our separation, I've worked on separating from that. And finding people who are okay with me being wrong. And experimenting with being wrong. Trusting that like I can make mistakes and you guys will still like me. I mean, these are primitive things. And, I don't care how old you are, you want to be liked. But, taking a little bit of a leap here, right? I sent a voice message to a dear friend of mine this morning, and I just thanked him for letting me be really vulnerable, because it's very hard for me to be vulnerable. I learned early on that like I wasn't going to gain much in my vulnerability. When I was sick and felt like I was dying of cancer, I was alone. I was left alone. That's a really fucking hard lesson to learn when you're 20. And what it communicated to me was that it wasn't okay to be sick, that no one was going to show up for me in those moments. So I might as well just fucking deal with them myself. Well, in this experience, I chose not to be alone. I chose to share what I was going through with people, a few close people that I could trust. I chose to be vulnerable, to like get to flex the muscle, right? I really am proud that I can bench 80 pounds at the gym. Well, I didn't get to 80 pounds overnight. I started with 10, okay? I'm not going to get to this place of being comfortable with all these complex emotions just overnight. I got to practice. So I chose to practice. Well, I think it's the same with our friends. And I mean, I didn't share this with people who I thought were going to, I don't need people to diss on him. This doesn't help me at all. It can feel good in the moment, right? Because then you feel like, oh yeah, fuck him or whatever, fuck her. Well, you know what? That doesn't help us at all, really. And so some of it is like exercising some discipline and acting as if, and choosing to, it didn't work in this relationship and it's not going to, but I don't have to sour all my other relationships too. Because it's the same motive. You're controlling.
I think also if I think we all have unique challenges that are like way harder for us than they are for other people. And it sounds like one of yours is asking for help, right? And so if
It's so simple.
if that's one of the things that you need to overcome, life is going to make it really hard for you. Like the fact that you were in a situation where you had cancer and people weren't inherently just being like, of course I'm here for you, it's like such an indication that that's a way bigger spiritual lesson for you, because maybe you needed to use your voice a little bit more than to just outright be like, I need help, and instead you used it as a way to justify, well, nobody wants to help me. I'm all alone, blah, blah, blah. But all of it wasn't right. It wasn't right that like you didn't have the help. And then there was that piece around like, let's make it extra hard for Sarah to do this thing she really, really needs to do. And then like, once you punch through that layer, it's like you can see the sky again, because this is your unique heart,
And getting back to the joy of you getting divorced, in order to say like, this is no longer working for me, I'm going to take action on that. That is you asking for help. That is saying like, I'm not going to settle for this. This doesn't feel good. We're stuck in this suffering. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to ask for help and I'm going to get out of this dynamic. Like that's why there's so much joy in this divorce, in this moment, because that is your unique hard. That is your spiritual karmic lesson that you're working through in this lifetime. And look how beautiful like things can show up on the other side when you actually do that thing that feels incredibly challenging to do.
It could be fun to do an episode where we all bring like the hardest thing to us, that you all be like, Grace, that's so easy. Just do it. It's like you can't compare like your hard to somebody else's hard, they say, because we all have a different version of it.
But it is interesting when you bring your hard and it's in its examined form to your support of others. You really get to support them, I think, in a way that might actually be useful. It's the unexamined hard that isn't helpful. Because when we know it's the, come on, you can do it. That's not fucking helpful. It's
I don't know why I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
and it's like, yeah, I get that. I totally get it. Because when I think about my X, Y, and Z, oh my God, I mean, and here's how I think I tackled that. I wonder if that relates to what you're experiencing right now. Does that resonate at all for you? I don't know. It doesn't. What would resonate? What do you need? Boy, when I was dealing with that hard thing, I felt so alone. I'm wondering if just in this conversation that if you feel alone, am I fucking this up? Am I trying to solve your problem and you just needed me to listen? Like, be wrong. Some of the biggest gifts I've had from people are people who show up and they're willing to just be wrong. Just be there.
Right. And also, like, what is right and wrong? Like, that sort of implies there's a universal right or wrong. And we know, like, with everybody's own unique perspective, like, we're all anchored in our rightness from our own perspective. And we can, like, kind of let go of the charge from those words. Like, if there's no black and white, we came to explore the in-between. What makes us think that anything makes us so unlovable and, like, puts us in the wrong category?
I was actually talking about this with Asha the other day. I was like, I really think the more people can get comfortable with there not being a one universal truth, like a non-questionable truth, that there is everyone's individual realities and that is their experience. And then I also think, like, if you have multiple people that their realities overlap, then you have a collective reality or a collective truth, but for that group of people, right? But where we get into the biggest conflict is when we wholeheartedly cannot even hold space for someone having a different reality, a different truth than us. And I think it's like, it's a constant lesson and it's hard to do, but just reframing, bringing your mind back to the concept. Okay, this is what's true for me based on my experience, based on my upbringing, based on everything that I've gone through. Could they be having a slightly different one? Could they be seeing this through a different lens? Could they be bringing a whole different story to here that isn't my story, but it doesn't make it wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always think, like, two people could see a swimming pool and one person feels so much joy because they love swimming in the summer and the other person's terrified because, like, they almost drowned last summer. You literally have, like, a
They hate the way they look in a bathing suit. They can't get over
bodily reaction, like anxiety versus joy. And then we're like, come on, this is really fun. And the other person can't even possibly access that feeling.
So where's everybody going to choose themselves? Come on, guys.
Yeah. Choose you. Yeah. Choose you.
What would be one note that you would say to the version of yourself last year before you made the decision to file, before you made the decision to move through and choose you, when you were in that stuck? You were like, oh, this isn't feeling good, but I don't know what to do. What did you need to hear then that maybe someone else listening might need to hear now?
I mean, I can very much feel the way I felt a year ago this time. I was extremely unhappy. I had this discontent, this unrest, this restlessness. I was full of just bitterness, resentment. It was oozing out of me. I was angry, like, with the world, with the universe, it was a lot of it. And it was a lot. There were a lot of feelings there that I was doing everything I could not to feel them. And I was looking for distraction at every corner because I just didn't want to feel how bad, just general term, bad I felt. And I really believe I did the best that I could in the moment. There were some things going on, like my daughter got pretty sick last fall, and it was real stuff, okay? It wasn't like manufactured, and there were real challenges. And I believe that we do what we can when we can do it. But if I was going to tell myself anything and talk to her, and I do think things happen in kind of a divine timing way. I mean, look at the astrology on this is really hilarious, right? Okay. But I wish someone would have like wrapped their arms around me. Like, honestly, just really saw, just said, it's okay. Like, I think that's what I really like. It's okay, because I think I felt like so much, all those emotions, like I had an interpretation about them all. There was shame about feeling all of them. I shouldn't be all these things. I shouldn't be unhappy. I shouldn't be resentful. I shouldn't be this. I shouldn't be that. Look at it. Look around. I've got everything that you think would make a person happy. And what's wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't you just get it together? Just try one more thing. Here, try this, try that. Like, I was so caught up in trying to just get away from it all because it felt like it was all bad. I wish someone had said to me, like, I don't know, it's okay. Like, can you let go of the judgment around all these feelings? They're just feelings. They're just feelings. It was my judgment of them, my perception of them that was just weighing me down so heavily. And making it really, I was making life really hard for myself. I don't know that I would have acted any sooner. We do what we do when we can do it. But I do have a different relationship to my feelings today. I really like them all a lot more. I'm not as afraid of them. That's a really great feeling. That feeling of knowing I can be in my feelings and they're just feelings. It's so good. All these words, I'm stumbling over it. And it sounds so simple, but it's not. If it was simple, we would have a much different world we live in. Let's just be real. Okay. So I recognize that this is hard work. But
I think you also do a really good job. Like, I remember you during that time, you did a really good job talking about all the hard things and also sort of having this attitude of like, but I'm handling them. So look how I'm handling them. But we're still talking about them. Like, and what I'm trying to say is, do you think that you were inviting somebody to have that moment and be like, it's okay, Sarah, like, this is all really hard, because you also had such a strong face on. Like, do you think you even knew at that time that you really needed a hug?
No, I didn't. I don't know that I believe that fundamentally anybody would want to hug me when I felt that way. I mean, there has been this other part of me that felt like I'm only loved when I'm happy, right? I got to be happy. And then people want to be with me. Who wants to be with you when you're miserable? Well, if you want to have a real relationship with someone, you got to give them a chance to be there for you when you're not happy, right? So I was like half-assing it, right? And I was intellectualizing the challenge, but I've got it, but I can handle it. I'm okay. Let me reassure you. I don't want you to worry about me. That was old. Those were old tapes playing, old messages.
I found that really lets people love you more too. Like, I have the same kind of fix it in me. And I remember I had a dating experience once where I was like, had a real project I was doing and I was giving lots of good feedback to them. And I was like being really perfect in my own lane. And then like, I just sort of like lost it and made a mistake and got really upset and started crying all the time. And I felt so ashamed. And they were like, oh my God, it's so nice to see that you have issues too. And it made them feel so good. And they like liked me so much more. They were like, what a relief,
You're not
and it like
perfect.
wasn't making me more lovable. It was actually making me more distant from the person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're going to cut ourselves off from parts of ourselves, we're not going to be able to be fully present to others in relationship. I mean, that's just, that's true. Now, sometimes you got to live in it to realize that it actually is true.
That is so real. And I think also people can feel when you're disconnected from those parts of selves because they don't feel safe around you to express those parts of selves. We are wired to think, okay, if I hide this imperfection, if I hide this, whatever, they will like me more. But in fact, they actually are acting weird around you because they don't feel safe to be their full self at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you're criticizing them being weird because they feel uncomfortable to be themselves. And then you feel ugly because you're being critical, and the whole thing, continues.
Relationships are hard. It's hard. It's hard work. I mean, like, let's all give ourselves some grace that just being in relationship as humans is hard. And, I don't know anybody that walks around being like, marriage is so easy. Oh my God. It's so simple.
I bet you there are people like that.
I don't know
There's
them.
gotta be. I'm gonna hold space for it. Let's have a
podcast.
Yes,
Have a podcast with the 3 people who want to talk about how easy it is.
I want to hear it. What do they do?
I want to hear it. I mean, I think there are ways to make it joyful, but there's work to be done in being in that kind of, because who's the person you partner with is going to invite you to do the most important work that you need to do. And that's what happened for me, right? I found a person who allowed me to do the most important work that I needed to do. And I'm good. And there's still work I need to do. And we're still in relationship too, I mean, just because we got divorced doesn't mean the relationship's over.
There'll be more lessons down the line.
Down the line.
The other thing is we all tend towards overthinking and overanalyzing, and like a lot of people don't live in that space. Like when you think about like what makes a relationship easy, like there are people out there who have a simple approach. Like we watch football on Sundays and we do this stuff, and like it feels easier because they have less mental chatter. And maybe it's because of their intellectual capacity. Maybe it's because they're more zen. Maybe it's because they don't know all the things that they could be thinking about, But I think as you get smarter and more expanded, and as you learn more about like self-help or spirituality or all these different things that you could think about, it can also make all of your relationships a lot more painful, including the relationship with yourself, if you don't know how to deal with it all. And so yeah, it's a good thing to think about, like, is all this good work we're doing like just making us more judgmental, more inner chatter? You kind of have to learn it all and then unlearn it to get to a place of being like things are good.
So resonate with that. It's so funny too, because like living in LA, it's always about like, how do you grow? How do you get better? How do you like all of the things you're constantly thinking about, different therapy modalities, different spiritual concepts, etc. And then when Daniel and I go back to the East Coast, and I'm with my friends who live in like Pittsburgh and Jersey and New York, and we're like, why does it feel like their life is so much more simple? Like they just like are happy, and they just like go to like a barbecue, and they're just like hanging out. Like no one's like, oh, my inner child really reared at that barbecue. Like no one's talking about that. Like
I was so triggered when I, saw that.
Yeah, they're just enjoying life. And we're like, okay, maybe we need to like take a page out of their book and like absorb some of that presence, where we're not always trying to like grow, evolve, get better, do it in the best way. It's a balance definitely between the two.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I guess maybe some of those people too have like a deeper unconscious happiness or unhappiness, and that they're not aware of. Not that it has to be everybody's story, but we just have more awareness around what all that uncomfortable stuff might be. And so we're like constantly looking at it. But it's interesting to get to the point now, Sarah, where your inner child isn't dating anymore. Like Sarah can date. And to some extent, like everybody's inner child is just trying to find the match. And so like, even if, our friends don't perceive us as having tons of issues, like your partner sees something totally different, because it's not having a relationship with Sarah now, it's having a relationship with something else.
I know that those inner child parts are experiencing a great deal of relief right now, because adult Sarah is showing up. They're still there, and I'm still in conversation with them. But the level of anxiety I feel just in general in life is so much less, because the adult version of me is here, is present. And they don't have to work so much. They're not freaking out like, is anybody going to take care of this? I've clearly stated and acted and reassured them that I am. Yeah, I got this. And their value is still there. That's a good warrant. There's a lot. I mean, the minute they start kicking in and over functioning, there's a warning sign. They're letting me know something's off. I just have a different relationship with them. So yeah, if I choose to date, they're going to still be dating, but in partnership with the adult version of me, as opposed to like out in front, leading the way, And so that's a big shift. I don't know, but as I was listening to you talk about like the friends on the East Coast, and I mean, I am a seeker by nature. I have been this way ever. I mean, I don't remember a time when I wasn't asking like, what else, more, where, just why. It's just part of it's my design, like, and I mean, I grew up in one of those small Midwestern towns where if you guys showed up from LA, you'd think, oh, life is so simple here. I don't know. I think some people are born, with just this. It's the way I'm wired.
And that's the unique truth. You know what I mean? Like that's the can we hold space for their way of living in partnership is not right or wrong, and our way of living in partnership is not right or wrong. They are different, and it is actually the best thing for us to be that seeker, to be that inquisitor, to be that person of curiosity of like, okay, what other layers can I chip away at? And then how do you just find happiness in your truth?
Yeah. Peace with just your way of being. So
Wow.
there you have it.
Welcome to your new chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's the beautiful thing about friendship, right? Relationships. You get to walk, through these big chapters, with each other, and yeah, excited for what's next for all of us
Congratulations.
in this age of Aquarius.
Yes, huge congrats.
I don't know what that means, but we'll
Yeah.
just do this dance.
Yeah.
Join.
No, I love you guys.
Love you.
you.
Proud of you.
Yeah. Well, thank
So
you.
proud of you.
Thank you.